Hello and welcome to the TT podcast. This is the podcast where we talk to one rider from the world of the TT to discuss their lives, their journeys and their ambitions with the greatest road race in the world. Alongside me, Steve. Clearly we're not back in the studio. Do you want to tell everyone where we are?
Hello man, I'm looking out these windows here, the sun's shining, it's fabulous today, it really is glorious and great to be back.
It's great. So if you're listening to this, nothing's changed. We're cracking on. But if you're watching this, it might look slightly different. Obviously, we have an empty chair here. Now, if we could fill that chair with one man, who would it be? Hey?
The main man.
The main man. Yeah? The Lord Lucan of the TT. We've been waiting for this one for a long time, and I think everybody listening and watching has been waiting for a long time. What do you think we're going to get out of him?
Depends what kind of a mood he's in all fairness. You know, if we can get him relaxed and talking and flowing, then hopefully we'll get a good insight, not just into his racing, but his life in general.
Yeah, he's an elusive character. He rocks up to the start line last minute, pops his helmet on and off he goes. He tries to stay away from media and keeps himself to himself, very similar to his uncle did.
Yeah, quite similar to me, really. I try and keep out the way and keep in the shadows.
You're the biggest attention-seeking person on this podcast. And that's saying something. Right, let's get into it. Let's get him in. Michael Dunlop. All right, there's so many stats, so I don't even know where to start. Let's go through them. First win was 2009. Personal best lap, 133.9. 21 wins. Potentially capable of overtaking your uncle as the greatest of all time, even this year. Michael Dunlop, welcome to the podcast. We've been waiting for this day for quite a while now, haven't we?
To be honest, he was lucky in 2009 because I was racing it.
And if I had my way, you'd be waiting a while longer for this podcast.
But you're here now, so let's start with the same question we always ask everybody when we start this podcast, and you've done it numerous times. You're into no man's land. You're rolling up through there. Your start preparation seems to be completely different to everyone else's in terms of rocking up to the grid, very last minute, helmet on, rolling through no man's land. But everyone has to start through the gantry, like you get that hand on that shoulder, waiting for that flag. What's going through your head? What you're thinking? What you're feeling?
You're just job time. You gotta figure you have to fit all your weeks practicing into. That's your time to shine. So you just, like everybody, people have all different emotions, you know, nerves, shit themselves, piss themselves. It's a very short space of time where all your emotions are all gathered into a fucking 5-second interval. Well, 10 seconds, because obviously when the first man goes, you know you're near ready. And then obviously you get a 10-second block window of the next man getting a slap. So it's you know, everyone's built into a very short window. You know, it's not the walking up, it's that 10 seconds where all your fears are all squashed into one wee bit, and then once you get that tap, then it just things disappear. But it's the 10 seconds that's the lead time. That's where all wherever you're feeling at that moment in time is all squashed into 10 seconds really.
What's the reason for it? Because I've been to the TT a few times, and you're always the last on the grid. Is there a superstition behind it, or is it just you just want to keep away from everything as much as you can? You keep yourself to yourself.
Sick of listening to you lads. Especially you, Steve. You're the problem. It's just there's so much going on. You know, I mean, it's like everybody's got their own way of getting on, but I just try and do my own thing and just batter on with it.
So, doing your own thing, does that stem from like your uncle, your dad? Like your uncle was famous for that, for just keeping himself to himself, going about his business, working on his own bikes, away from everything. And when it was time to race, it was time to race. Do you take that from him, or is this your trade?
About that, and somebody like me is I deal in a very front value. So if I've got something to say to you, you'll get it. And 95% of the people don't like that. So sometimes you're better just saying nothing and staying out of the way than telling people what you really think. So that's why I try to hide out of the way. And most of the stuff what we do is stem. You know, my dad done his own stuff. My uncle Joey done his own stuff. So you know, we're just used to do it because I'm probably the last breed of real road racers, in my opinion. You know, not saying the boys aren't road racers, but likes of all the boys now and probably Steve's day, they were all British Championship riders going road racing, where road racing used to be national road racing going international road racing. It wasn't really, there was a short space of time where the World Championship was involved in that, and then that left out the world scene, and then you had a couple of years of Steve Hislop and Carl Fogarty bounced in out of the world scene, but then it went sort of back to the road racing fraternity type people, and then now it seems to be a lot of short circuit men that are now doing both jobs. Where I'm probably the last of the road racers actually coming to be competitive. Not competitive, but to try and win road races.
The winners, really, coming through that history of
just doing national road races.
Do you think that's an added pressure? Because obviously you're always flat chat. I know it takes your mind off other things, but it keeps you flat chat. Obviously you're fiddling and engines out, in and out, set up and various things. It's all controlled by you. You've got a great army of people around you that you work with for years. But do you think that's added pressure when you're rolling through that no man's land on the start line? There's always something. Did I do that?
Did I do that right? Did not do that right? It does do. You're always in your mind's going over time. Did we make sure? Did we forget to do that? Did we not do it? But when you've once you take off, obviously that's in that period of time which all goes away after that 10 seconds. So it's not the end of the world. But the way I look at it is, if you haven't done it, it'll shit itself at some point of the time. So, and you're not going to back off until it shits itself. So there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? But that stage, you're not going to put, oh shit, I better pull over here in case I hadn't done that right. But you'll just go until it stops. But it's harder. It's a wee bit harder now because I don't really know any different. But with the miles that short circuit men are getting at the minute, it's hard to. We should maybe concentrate a wee bit more doing that. But obviously it's finance related sort of thing. But that's life.
So if you had more finance, you'd go and do it. It's not like you're against it. You don't really want to.
No. It's just like I say. I don't. The BSB job is just grand. It's the biggest problem is because you come from Ireland all the time. It's that sort of is the big financial thing straight away, where your boats and flights for the lads and boys have to take days off work. And the problem with a lot of the bigger teams now is they have a team of 10, 15 lads who are paid a full year's wage to do that job. If you know what I mean, where the lads that work with me or they've got one's a sparky, one's a mechanic.
Let's go back all the way. I mean, everyone knows your story, everyone knows the family history, but go back to the start. Was racing ever off the cards with the family you came from, or was there any other sports that you kind of wanted to get into?
I think
or
for anybody, racing would have been obviously my other brother. He has no interest in motorbikes,
right?
Me and William was, but my other brother had no interest. So it was just obviously a theory of maybe I was just because I was riding it. I was always riding with my dad and stuff like that. But you have same my other brother. He has no interest in motorbikes at all, none. So at the end of the road, he wouldn't watch him. It's not because he just dislikes me. He just has no interest. You know what I mean? So
is it something you kind of sort of it happened naturally, or was you always focused on?
I think it was something. Well, I think it was like go up in the morning, brushing your teeth. We didn't know any different. You go up in the morning.
It was normal.
It was just a normal. It was a normal scenario. Other people, it's maybe not normal. Maybe people that never come from a racing background. To go racing was, they had to go and want to go and do it. Where we were sort of in the middle of it, and you were sort of going to do it anyway, sort of thing. So it was never really.
When you was growing up, was your dad, could he separate himself from the racing, or was it just full on all the time?
I think the problem with Dad was when he was growing up, he spent a lot of his years with injuries, so he spent a lot of time trying to get fit again. I think that was his big thing. Even after his 94 crash, he sort of got himself back up on his feet again, and then he had another crash in 97 again, and then it was always a hurdle of some description. And then after he sort of got himself back on his feet, then Joey's accident happened, and it was always seemed to be the problem is if you
like a rebuild.
You're always trying. It's nearly like a reset in a computer. You always had to try and regroup and go. I think that's all to do with mental strength more than, and I think that's all they had. That it's like getting up in the morning and
everything he went through. He came back strong.
He came back probably stronger than, obviously not physically stronger, but mentally stronger because obviously his injuries. Still with speed, and I don't think he ever lost his speed. The time won the British Championship, and then he got a couple of rides that time. He was in the Norton at that time, and then the Norton was starting to come in, it went bust or whatever way I think JPS had pulled their sponsorship money and blah blah blah, and then he got a chance. Really, after that was his next big chance was RC45, and then he had his accident at the TT. But I think the chance he probably would have had a chance of at the British Championship where they got Simo and all them boys at that time. But he was to go 125 Grand Prix. The boy had said to him, he says, which was probably, and he said it was fair enough. Why employ a fucking 28-year-old man from Ballymoney when I can employ a 16-year-old man from Italy or Spain or somebody who speaks the mechanical languages, and then I think my dad realised that, and then he thought maybe the British Championship route then was probably his kick. He was a bit small for the big bikes at the roads. He knew that himself, that he was like the 45 and the TT would have been a handful. But short circuit, he was fine. It was just, obviously, you well know, big bike round here, when you're small like that, it's not the most practical thing to be on.
Yeah.
Was there no kind of sights on world championships for you then? Was it always road?
Not really. It was finance again. You
Was it?
never
Right.
really. It would have been okay if you were able to stand up and I remember when I started off World Endurance, when I done World Endurance, it was the fastest at the Honda. The team of the Honda we were in, it was fast, but it was only because I got the chance to do it. You couldn't financially able to do it. It wasn't financially viable for somebody like me. It's just the time you pay for everything, and the domestic championships now is between tyres and fuel alone is horrific. Unless you're in a big team or bringing big finances, you really are screwed.
Do you think your, I don't want to say attitude, but the way you keep yourself to yourself, do you think that's hindered you from potentially, instead of towing the line where you could have, where you potentially didn't want to, but you're like, if I tow the line, I'll get some money and then I can go that way? Or was that never a thought?
I suppose, again, if I thought I wanted to go that route, I probably would have pushed myself to go that route.
Right.
But obviously my main goal was get to the TT.
Yeah.
So, people possibly, if, like everyone, if you wait enough scenarios and put yourself into a better position, that is possible. And same with the finance thing, I know people who suck the death out of people, just, and for me, that's my problem. Is it's not false, but I'm not a ball licker for no reason, all my boys, they're all good people, and a spade's a spade, and to go around noshing somebody off just to justify myself, I'd rather be somebody's pal, or be not even pal, I'd rather just be straight with, this is what happens, this is what the gig is. So it means then there's no, instead of having to spend my life, doing it in different ways. People have got different ways of going on. The job's just different outlooks for different people.
You're such a busy fella, it must be really, with your preparation and the way you build your team for racing each year, for all the road races as well as anything else that you do, it must be really hard work, especially on the other side of the water from the British Championship, coming over and riding there with the Hawk team this year, for instance. But the point I'm getting at is you've got businesses, you've got a lot of other things going on in your life, so your head must be at 500 mile an hour every day of the flipping week. I've been around the house and you've been fixing the van because of flipping, you've jackknifed the trailer and this has gone wrong, that's gone wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's just there's so much going on in your life.
There is, and I suppose that was probably the different reason it came from. If you're just going road racing or going racing as general, you've only yourself to think about. Obviously with the way my life has sort of planned out, I've got other scenarios I need to keep on top of, just with the debris that's been left. So you're having to always keep busy to, obviously, there's always pots going different ways. There's not just, one life channel, you know what I mean? So you have to keep the whole wheels running, and if you can't keep the wheels running, you're not only just screwing yourself up here, you're screwing a lot of people up, so you have to fucking keep the momentum going. And I think that's just, here, listen, everybody, as the man says, some people wouldn't like to swap their problems for somebody else's, you know what I mean? And everybody's got their own sort of life issues, so you just have to, whatever way you want to deal with it, and mine is to batter on, get it done, because she ain't changing.
I'm just trying to get a picture of your life over to the listeners, because obviously everybody sees Michael Dunlop at the TT and other places, but you're quite a different person behind the scenes and doing different things. Obviously quite a good business mind as well for the for the other different businesses you're involved with?
Yeah. Okay, I try, obviously motorcycling is a, for people. Some people it's a job. For me, I would like to think it's yes, it's a job to a degree. I've always realised, but life, you'll get to a stage where you can't motorcycle anymore. You have to have, a system going, and I don't want to stop at some point and have to start from scratch. I've started building businesses and trying to push them on and trying to get an understanding where things is going. So I've got a couple of things going on. So it means, and you can't let them feel either, because you can't just let one hang and let so you have to sort of be able to manage both of them. But I say if you can try and get every, it's like spinning plates. I think if you get one spinning right, keep the rest of them spinning. You can keep the momentum going. I think that's the business life. I suppose when you have good people behind you, have good people doing different works, running bits and pieces, you makes life a whole lot easier too, because obviously you can do half your life now on a mobile phone, so it doesn't matter where you're at.
So what does Michael Dunlop do in the downtime? What's the ideal thing for you for a bit of chill time?
At the minute, Michael Dunlop hasn't got any downtime. That's the problem. I don't have any. I find different scenarios different. It's downtime for me. It's sometimes it's just easier just to sit down for 5 minutes. That's the downtime. But I've been quite fortunate enough in life to get to do different things through my racing career. That's been enjoyable. I do a bit of flying, do bits pieces like that. There, I've got my own plane and bits and pieces. I'm able to. It's a downtime, but downtime in that is still mentally straining as well, because it's not really downtime when the weather's good, but you're still having to think about what and my downtime isn't downtime in other people's mind. Mine has to be mental. You have to keep the brain going, because if you let the brain stop, then that's when all you reminisce of all the shit. So you're better so my downtime is still other people's pressurised time.
So the thought of a 2-week holiday to Spain would be your worst nightmare?
No, I'd rather lick a cow's arsehole than eat grass. That's the truth. No, it's not. It's not
so
for me.
Why do you enjoy flying so much? Obviously we spoke about this before. I fly, and
you fly,
but once you get up, there isn't that much to. Obviously, you've got communication, radio, and stuff.
Your brain's always working. I think the brain's still working. Because you can't. And I remember doing it one day. We was flying along, and you're relaxed. Next thing, the gust of wind came from somewhere. Things nearly on its roof. You know what I mean? So it was a big time of focusing on. Your brain's still right. Always, man says always, you have to expect unexpected. And as with a flying job, you can look at the views, but your mind has to be, what am I seeing? Is my heights right? What's my visuals? Is it going anywhere near any heights? Weather. There's just a load of stuff going on and I say there's a load of. As much as it's enjoyable, you still have to think, you know what I mean? And they say, I would love to drive an F1 car, for instance. I'd love to drive, I think it'd be fucking fantastic. Where when I get into it, I'd be hyped up as probably as much as would be in a motorbike, you know what I mean? It's the same buzz I get in my rally car. I do rallying for fun, but I get more hyped there probably than I do get onto my motorbike. So the fun things that I get probably give me the same feelings, if not more, doing that than I would doing what they say is my high up time, or my where I get hyped up, especially the TT where your adrenaline's all up. Doing them other things probably left my adrenaline as much, and if not a wee drop more.
With the flying, you had any near moments? Any times you've had to have a word with yourself?
I had a
You're renowned for being obviously an aggressive rider.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you really are. I think there's more quality involved with that. But on the flying side, is there any times where you've just thought, cool, that was a bit...
I had at Campbelltown once, and I was flying. I wasn't doing anything, at the end of the day, when you're flying, and especially when you're somebody in with you, motorbike, I'll take every chance in the world. And especially against another rider, I don't care. He's put himself in that position. Let's dance. You know what I mean? Where me flying at, somebody's came with me, and if I'm on my own, fine. If I'm on with somebody's, they've took the chance of now their life is now in my hand. You have to. But I was in Campbelltown. I was going to Campbelltown on my own, and I just was flying over the mountains, and the freaking wind caught me. And no, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was flying amicably, but it was just wind that came from nowhere. And like some smaller planes are very, very light, and especially one person in it, you know, only takes a wee drop of wind, and obviously your ballast is heavy on one side and it is on the other. And I must say that definitely put the gravy down my back, because there's nothing you can do. You can't just stop it and say, "Oh, sure, I'll go out a minute here," and fucking, you can't, like a motorbike. If you get scared of a motorbike and you don't like it, you pull up and say, "Fuck me, screw this shit." You can't physically do that. You're in the shit. You can't get out of it. You've got nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. That's it. And that's the big question mark behind it all the time, because I think that's flying, and I think that's why the adrenaline is, because something happens, you just can't physically say, right, hold on, let's just stop it, I'm going to climb out here.
Yeah.
We'll reset, go again. Once them wheels take off the ground, and I don't think anybody, unless you've done a bit of, not even people do it in different ways, the first time I went solo on the plane was probably one of the the biggest chances you take in life, because once you take off, like, you've done your couple of hours, whatever hours you were doing, and you've literally the wheels have come off the ground, you're on your own. You can't ask somebody to help you. You can't, the instructor was on the radio, and I remember freaking flying, and I got up off the ground, and I was like, fuck me, how am I getting this wanking thing down? I'm stuck now, you can't literally, stop, you can't just say, I'm not feeling it today, I'm not liking this. You're freaking, you've one choice. You're freaking, you're going down a pile of dung, or you're going to get it landed one or the other, and that's, at that time, your brain's freaking multitude.
So your other hobby, the rallying, you're quite good rally driver. You've got a lovely Mark II Escort, 200 odd horsepower, Vauxhall powered thing, fabulous bit of kit. Now, from that side, you can't be aggressive in those things. Obviously, you've got to push, but I believe the fastest way is probably a slightly less aggression. How do you manage that?
It is, especially in Escort too, because they're obviously tail happy. My problem is with rallying, I've had some good results, I've had some big offs, and that's things because seat time is massive in them there. I've been lucky enough, a mate of mine, he owns Den Motorsport, so it means when I go rallying, you've got all the lads around you, they know how to make sure everything's right. Your setup's roughly within a window straight away, so I can piss about, and I'm not tied to fucking, like motorbikes, you're fucking constantly, I need to click a compression. The car's in a ballpark just out the wheels off it, you know what I mean? And I say I've had some good results, had a good result here in the Isle of Man, other best pieces, but the problem is when I go off big, because I'm obviously on the door handle all the time, you know what I mean? And it's fucking a great sport, and I would love to have a proper drive a car, but it's like WRC car, 4-wheel drive car. Love my Escort, it's a fucking great thing. I don't know who wouldn't like an Escort, you know what I mean? They're a fucking fabulous thing, beautiful, all the bells and whistles on her, 300 horse, it's a beautiful, and it's now they're a known collector's car now, so I have one, and we're lucky enough to have one, and I love it, I just love to see what 4-wheel drive car would be like, because you see them boys driving them 4-wheel drive cars is madness, like, you know what I mean? It's
special.
They are, and that's the sad thing, we lost a fantastic talent in Ireland, a fantastic human too, and Craig, and people like him, they inspired to get to the World Championship, and it's not an easy place to get, and he was one of the talented ones, and he was able to live his dream, and I say when you lose such a good talent like that, Ireland has some fantastic sporting individuals, but when you're in Ireland, I think you're very closed, and not many of us make it out as such. Not many make it to the and some of us do, and as I said, sadly rallying too is a bit like motorbikes. Sometimes it takes the good ones.
So TT wise, you've obviously come through the ranks. You've ridden and raced successfully all sorts of different bikes, 2 strokes, 4 strokes, carbureted bikes, flipping fuel injected bikes, and obviously all the modern things, and you've been very successful. You've won with so many different manufacturers. Is there still goals for you to win on them all? manufacturer-wise?
I don't think there's many left.
No, there isn't there.
I don't think there is. I think I've rode and won in basically everything. I've won all the classes. It's been good to
What's
me.
the motivation? That's my point. Is it just the wins? Is it
I love
the
the
record?
No, I just love winning. You know, we've always been. My dad always pushed us to be better than, or tried to be. You know, it's hard because this job, I'm in a double-edged sword because people are like, you know, with what's happened in the life, you're like, what the fuck are you doing it for? You know, it's mental stuff. You know what I mean? But you know, as I said, somebody the other day who was just chatting, and I was like, I've spent, you know, people live to their 85, 90, you know, die of cancer or whatever disease is the scene, you know, like for me that's just fucking dreadful, you know what I mean? You know, and with my life, if I walk out the door and somebody shoots me now, you know, I've spent my life within my 30 years, I've done more than a lot of people. You know, I've got to travel the world, I've met lovely people, I've met a load of dickheads, I've met so many different variations of people, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't have done it because of motorbikes. But then again, there's the other side of it. So, you know, in theoretical terms, I'm 190 years age because I've done so much shit, like, you know what I mean? So, you know, you can't, you know, there's a vicious circle there of, you know, but my determination is, you know, biggest thing is, and the problem is too, I'm the only Dunlop left, you know what I mean? I'm carrying a, you know, a name or a brand as such, you know what I mean? Or
is that added pressure?
It's probably not added pressure, you know. We've always, like my dad and Joey and William, were just humble people. We're from a small town in Ballymoney, you know, very small, you know, to come out of here and out of a small town, and everybody comes from a town of some description, but for them lads it was all, they love the town, you know, they always loved it. I love town, I still live outside the town, you know. For me, Ballymoney's, you know, it's changed over the years, but it's still home from home, and you always feel that, you know, wee bit of pride of, I'm still come from Ballymoney, you know what I mean, of wee small town, not much in it, you know, still walk down the street, you sort of know 95% of the people, you know, and it's just, and then you go to like the world stage, like for me is, TT is like Olympic gold medals, you know, people go to do that, I go to the highest, biggest road race in the world. Same with everybody's sport, you know, you're trying to get that peak, and my peak and my profession is the Dunlop TT, in my opinion, you know, it's the world's biggest road race, so you have to succeed there, and that's no different for somebody to go and represent England in the Olympics, you know, for, you know, so to come out and still try to push and be, you know, try and, you know, folk go, wow, Ballymoney, who the fuck knows about Ballymoney? You know, but they do know Ballymoney now because my dad and Joey and what we've done. You're like, you know, that added pressure of, you know, because my dad always wanted to be, he was always proud of his name. He was always proud of the name that they created and the town they came from. So you're always just trying to just keep the momentum going and try and, you know, keep that. You don't want to ever let that, you know, especially your dad's something they live to do. It's like people, you know, dad maybe had a bicycle and people keep that. I'm just trying to keep the name sort of half going anyway.
Do you ever stop to acknowledge what you've achieved? Because, like you say, all the family very humble, but do you ever stop and realise not only what the whole family's achieved, but you yourself? Do you ever pat yourself on the back and go, shit, that's a good job?
This job was, I don't think it was ever, you know, it wasn't a dick measuring competition. It was always, you know, there was never, oh, I've done this. You know, like if I've won more TTs the youngest age ever than people have even started to win you know, and until you look at that, like somebody said the facts, I'd won, I think it was something like 17 or something TTs or something like that before Joey had started, you know. It was, you know, it's just weird, you know, when you see stuff like that, you're like, fuck, that's, you know, not easy done, you know what I mean? It's through the life career, it's been hard to, TT's always a hard place. Sometimes it falls in people's laps. They've had a good run of things, but all my TT over the years, you know, I've led about 10, 11 races by miles, broke down, or I've had good weeks breaking down, and or I've caught with this, or got back markers, and it's just every year you seem to get that slap in the face, and you're like, fuck me, you know. And but I think that's what inspires you to keep coming back, having another go at it, and you know, it's stupid thing. I don't know. It's you never really, you know. I got the freedom of the town a good few years back, you know, and stuff like that. That there's stuff you think that's just cool, you know. I mean, I get to it doesn't do anything for me. Like, you know, I can't park anywhere. Like, but I can, you know, it's just you know, you get to go and then a Stormont at the time when they were actually doing something. You know, you could go up there and greet you and whatnot. I don't have any of the. Before McGuinness starts crying, I haven't got any of his credentials because he's got the fucking the big stuff. People like me don't get big stuff. We only get, well, for us it's big, you know what I mean. But he's got he always claims he's the man because he's got the fucking. He got to do the old fucking knighting job, you know what I mean. 3 letters. So he you know, he's out there boasting at the minute probably. So.
So at what point will you decide that enough's enough, or like McGuinness, because we've spoken to him in the past. Someone's going to have to physically go, you're not going and doing that anymore. But you'll keep going. Are you the same?
It's hard because at the minute, I understand, you know, John loves it, absolutely loves it. Fucking loves riding motorbikes, loves, you know, he loves what he's created and stuff like that there.
Loves the lifestyle.
Loves the lifestyle. You know, he does, John genuinely loves it. Where what I'm doing at the minute is, it's a lot of work, you know, even trying to get finances and, you know, there's a lot of work going into it, and there's stages, you know, the love, you're like, fuck, this is hard work. My biggest thing is winning is the love. I wouldn't like to, I don't know if I'd be one of these people who just ride around, you know, still loving it. You know, it's not me, you know. I wouldn't come back unless I thought I was still competitive in my own mind and know that I'm fit to win, or at least if I have the right package, I can win. That wouldn't be in me. I wouldn't entertain it. I'd rather, you know, sit in a puddle. Like, you know, that's no gain for me. I don't, you know, it's not the same. I wouldn't have that buzz.
So it's the buzz of winning. It's the buzz of competition.
It's competition. Like I say, on the people love it. I know that. I understand that. They absolutely love it. But I wouldn't come, if you know what I mean. I wouldn't come to just to participate or
to win,
to try and get some money, you know, just to turn up and say, like, no, I need, mine's a goal of trying to win races, and at the minute I still think that if I have the right package, that I'm still fit to win races. So
all right, we'll pause you there, Michael. We're going to end part 1 here, but make sure you join us for part 2, where Michael will be talking all about his TT in 2023.